Hi, this is Siobhán O'Brien and you're listening to Retrospectives with John Broughton on 3 SER KC Radio.
Let's get started. There's quite a musical history in your family background. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, it started with, I suppose, my great-grandparents. They had a travelling opera company over in Lancashire in England, I think around Blackpool, and they used to travel all around Britain and Ireland, and they ended up settling in Ireland. I think my great-grandfather died up in Omagh, County Tyrone, up in the north of Ireland, and so they settled here then, and my grandfather was their only child, and he then had my mother, and then there was me. So that's kind of the history of the four generations of it. And so my mother was a singer, and her brother Brendan Boy would have been a famous show band 60s singer in Ireland in the 60s.
He's quite a household name in Ireland, I believe.
He is, yeah, he would be. And he still gigs, he lives in Las Vegas and comes over here and gigs quite often, a couple of times a year.
Were you ever headed for another career outside of music yourself, or was it always going to be the way for you?
There were funny notions thrown in the air, like being a mermaid or being an acrobat in a circus, but no. It was always going to be the music.
What was the first music that inspired you to go as far as to want to start making your own?
Probably Bob Dylan, I'd say. My dad was a fan of him, and he was by a fan I mean he had 2 Bob Dylan albums on vinyl, Freewheelin' Bob Dylan and John Wesley Harding, and I loved Freewheelin', and I fell in love with that straight away, and that, I suppose, caused me to investigate, and so like at 13, 14 I was listening to those albums, and by the time I had been playing piano and violin, I think, and then at 16 I decided I'd start playing guitar, and that's really kind of when it all came about. At 16 I started playing guitar, and about 4 months later then I wrote my first song, so it was kind of like I needed this extra arm to be the rudder to steer me towards, I don't know why it happened like that, because I never thought I'd write a song. And so I was thrilled to bits when that happened. It kind of happened as a stream of consciousness thing, and then it was done, and so I was delighted.
I believe there was recorded evidence of you singing at a very young age.
Yeah, we found that recently, just in time for that latest album, Songs I Grew Up To. My aunt, Dad's sister, used to live in South Africa, so when she'd come home, she'd like to get all the family together, and she'd like to record everybody singing a song or a poem or whatever. And so we had 4 generations in the room at the same time. So my great-grandfather, grandparents, uncles, aunts, mother, father, and then the kids started singing. So we found this then recently, and so it was actually good enough to use.
Looking back at that little girl now, do you think you had the performance bug in you at that very young age? You had the desire to perform already?
Probably. I mean, it probably was always there, because I seem to have no problem just standing up singing when somebody told me to sing, or else that was just a condition from my mother. You have to sing now, and that's it. And then I probably lost it for a while, and then it came back,
Interested in your songwriting process, can you pinpoint a time when you really started to gain a self-confidence in your songwriting?
I mean, at the start you think it's great because you've actually, written a few songs, but they're usually crap, obviously, at the start. And so it probably took a few years before I thought, anything of what I was doing, and like out of maybe 1 in every 20 you think was okay, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you kind of try that, and then, but sure, everybody would be so nice and go, that's lovely, it's great, but you know, I mean, the real evidence is when people come to your gigs, so you know, that was kind of nice then.
Yeah. Looking at your writing now, what aspect of your songwriting do you labour over the most?
The lyrics, probably.
Yeah.
I usually I'll get inspired and it'll be lyrically, and I'll write a load of lyrics and think, is there something I can do with these, and then I'll try and sit down and put music to it, and then I'll go over the lyrics again until they're right, you know what I mean? And then, but now lately I've been just putting melodies and lyrics straight out of my head into my phone, which I would be driving mostly, and then all the inspiration seems to come while I'm driving, and because I've no CD player in the car, so it gives me my head is just in its own head, just as it should be driving. So I just record straight into my phone for ideas, which is great, and then I can use them later on, then putting it all together. So, but that's kind of it. I don't know whether they're better songs or what, but I mean, I would consider myself limited as a guitar player. So when I write melodies out of my head, I usually get my guitar player then to kind of lend his expertise, so that I'm not limiting the song really, because it's better with this melody that came out of my head, but I can't transgress that onto guitar, so I get him to do it. So it's great.
Is there a rule of thumb that you use? How do you gauge when a song is ready and when it requires no further editing?
I'll usually just feel it, really. I mean, from singing it, I'll know. It's just an instinct, I suppose. You just kind of know whether it is or not. If it doesn't sit right, or it doesn't feel right with me when I'm singing it, it won't be sung. So I'll either go back to it or I'll just forget about it.
You've worked with some wonderful musicians. What qualities do you like to see in a musician to make them someone that you'd like to work with?
I like to be very comfortable with them, and I like them to be good crack, and then obviously they have to be good. Sometimes people work really hard and they mightn't be as talented as somebody else, but it seems to click. If something feels right, then I'll go with it.
Yeah.
And I don't care if they're not the best musician in the whole world. It's just whether everybody gels together, and that's usually kind of how that happens. Usually I'd know them too for so long, you know what I mean? It's usually the same band that I've worked with for the last few years. But I don't do that many band gigs, so it's just a pity that we don't play together more often. So there isn't really an opportunity to do it. So.
Do you judge your own work harshly? Are you your own worst critic sometimes?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And then you delude yourself other times. And you're thinking, why didn't anyone think this song is good? But look, there's so many. It's funny. There's only one song that everybody seems to kind of like, which is one of my songs called My Man. It doesn't matter from what genre people are coming from, they seem to like that song, and that's a great thing to know for yourself. But I mean, sometimes, usually it's like random people saying they like this song or they like that song, and nothing seems to add up. So it's just I've only got one song, but everybody likes it. So I've got to keep kind of working. I'm writing a lot at the moment now, so for the new album, and that'll be just all my own stuff. Well, there might be one or two covers, which would be covers that nobody's heard,
Yeah.
So, let's hope that they're going to like something off that.
You mentioned My Man. It's a very personal song for you. Can it be sometimes a bit difficult putting so much of yourself out there in song? Well,
it was at the start. It was basically about my late partner, and he died 7 years ago this September. So I mean, it's not like I'm falling apart every time I'm singing it now. But it was more difficult at the start.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it just seems, I suppose, stuff that's really personal seems to come across. You know, it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's just that's everyone tells me that that's the one that comes across them every time. You know.
You're a proudly independent musician. What are some of the major pitfalls you've come across in your battle as an independent musician?
Oh my God, have you got 2 hours? Really, the biggest annoyance is people in the music business not getting back to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not emailing, not bothering ever to get back to you. You know, and because Ireland is so small and because there's so many musicians in Ireland, the music business doesn't have to get back to anybody because they're just looking after their own all the time. And you really, like, lucky breaks come when you meet somebody who's actually interested in you. You know what I mean? Like, sending stuff off just like seems to be so futile, unless somebody has requested it, you know, or they really want it. But I mean, sending it off randomly to everybody is, you know, it's very random. It's just so random, you know. But I mean, yeah, no, it really bugs me when people just can't at least get back and say, sorry, we're not interested, or whatever.
Just to hear something, yeah.
You know, just to say whatever. Even, I know people don't have time, but, you know, and maybe they just have millions of people every week saying the same thing, but it's just, that would be one of my pet dislikes.
You mentioned Bob Dylan earlier as a early influence, and it's a well-documented story that you virtually, I guess, ambushed him in the street one day.
Yeah.
You deserve a bravery medal for that.
Well, I think it was pure naivety, really. Yeah, no, just he was coming out of the hotel that he was staying in and going to his gig, the show that was on in the Point Depot in Dublin, and I just basically ran out and spotted him and ran over to him and said, "Oh, hi, Bob, I don't want to annoy you. I just want to give you a tape and I'll go away," knowing whatever I knew, that he didn't want to speak to anybody ever. And he just groaned and grumbled and pulled his hood over his face. And I said, no, I really don't want to annoy you. I just want to give you a tape. And he just turned around and said, "Well, sing for me, so." So I stamped my foot and said, "Look what I sing." And then he turned around and said, "Well, sing for me, so." So I ended up kind of singing a couple of verses of "Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You," that old Negro spiritual that Joan Baez does. And he said, "Sing another verse," and then I did. And then he said, "Let's walk this way." And so I spent kind of around about 8 hours with him. And he brought me to the concert and to dinner afterwards, where all those other people were. And so that was kind of a great memory to have, you know. So he had me singing for them at the table then as well too later on. It was kind of like his little muse for the night, I presume. I don't know.
I believe Leonard Cohen's a bit of a fan too.
Who?
Leonard Cohen?
Oh, Leonard Cohen, yeah.
Yeah.
He sent me a book with Henry Matisse paintings on it, and it was I suppose some kind of a limited edition of the lyrics of "Dance Me to the End of Love" with a Henry Matisse painting on each page. And he just had heard of me through an old college friend and listened to my stuff and just sent me the book, I think, as a gesture of encouragement, you know, which is really nice.
Oh, absolutely. It must give you a great kick along to get approval from people like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if it was approval, but he was being really nice anyway. But one of my songs I wrote called "Hazel to Blue" is kind of a tribute to Leonard Cohen. Just came about from listening to "Famous Blue Raincoat" and walking home at 4 a.m, and I think it's up on the website, Hazel to Blue. But I want to do an orchestral version of it. I'm supposed to be doing that in the next couple of weeks, so hopefully that'll be. Maybe I'll send that to him.
Talking about the CD songs I grew up to, I believe it originally wasn't even meant to be as a full-length official album.
No, it was never meant to be an album, no. It was my aunt in California. When I'd go over and stay with them, I'd go over and back to the States, you know, gigging, and they're in California, so it's always handy, and I always drop in on them. And so she'd asked me to sing these particular songs, and she said, "Oh, I'd love to hear them. Would you ever put them on a CD for me?" So that was going around in my head for about a year and a half, and I said, "God, I better do that for my aunt, you know." And so I did, and when I came back to collect them, Martin O'Malley, who ended up producing it in his studio in Miltown, Melbourne, County Clare, had just, you know, put a lot of backing behind it, and I thought, oh my God, this is really good, you know. It's not kind of me that I think I want to be, but, you know, it's really good. And so we just kind of went forward with it then, and then involved so many other people, and it just became a kind of a family album. And that was my time to be sentimental, so that's it, and it's done and dusted now, and it's not happening again.
Just the same though, having to focus on interpreting other people's songs to such an extent with this record, did it bring the singer in you out more, do you think?
Probably. It's funny because since I've done it, and while doing it, I used to think, I come to the point about this whole thing about limiting myself, you know, because I didn't consider myself a great guitar player, and, you know, should I be branching out and doing other things? And once you kind of get over that, the ego of that's involved with that, you know, I just want to sing my own songs and I just want to do this. Once you kind of get over that, it's very liberating, and it's actually kind of less pressure with everything you do. And that's kind of ended up what happened. So, I mean, I was singing those songs for years, but never realised that, you know, vocally they were good songs to be doing too. But kind of it wasn't cool enough to be doing them. And so, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I did, and I still do want to branch out more vocally. You know, I mean, I listen to everything, and I mean, I love opera and stuff like that too. And it's always good to keep pushing the limits, you know. So that was one great lesson to learn, you know.
In general, not just with this record, what criteria do you use in choosing songs that you'd like to cover?
In choosing songs?
Yeah.
Well, normally, you see, I would have done my own stuff.
Oh, yes.
But, and you just have to try and choose the best ones that you've written at that time. But, I mean, even at the moment now, I'm thinking of doing another side project with my keyboard player, which I'm going to do hopefully some orchestral arrangements with him. But I'm thinking of doing other people's songs too, like Ron Sexsmith, Josh Ritter, so, you know, really lovely, good songwriters that haven't been really exploited.
Yeah.
And they would be songs that I would sing because they're beautiful songs vocally, but that, you know, I'd never have the opportunity otherwise to do them. So I think I choose them because, well, it just goes that I think that they're good songs. You know what I mean? There's no way I'd be doing. Well, I'm going to say no. I wouldn't be doing standards the way that people think standards are. I love to do, you know, like underground stuff, or like, I mean, Ron Sexsmith was well known as a great songwriter in songwriting circles and in people who know who Ron Sexsmith is. But I mean, in general, people wouldn't know who he is. And there's just all these beautiful gems that he's written that, you know, he's gone for years and he's still not huge, which is great for us, the fans. And but, you know, that type of thing, I'd love to do him, and I love Josh Ritter, and there's a new girl called Katie Herzig. She's in Nashville. You know, there's some fantastic songs out there that in general the public don't hear, because radios normally, you know, the huge radio stations, like here even, our regional radio stations are mostly owned by English companies. So all the playlists come from England to be played over here in our local stations. So, like, even local people don't get much of a chance to be heard on their own local radio, which is a pity. Which I presume with your radio, that isn't what happens at all.
No, we're very proud. We proudly stand behind our
community radio based, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's fantastic, and we probably need more of them here, really.
There's obviously a great American folk influence in your work. What's the level of interest in your work from America, and have you ever considered a relocation there for a period?
Well, to be honest, I probably thought I always thought I'd end up living in America. Yeah, because of solely the music. Because I listened to Bob Dylan, I think first, as from very early on, that dictated a lot of the other stuff that I listened to. So then you go backwards and listen to Woody Guthrie and Lead Belly and the Staples singers, and you know, all those great Americana artists. And yeah, that was kind of instilled in me really from early on. And I then had my son, so he's 18 now, and really I think that's probably why I didn't move, because it would have been just too hard to move over to the States with a young child, you know. So and I think the want has gone off of me now to move anywhere, even though I'm open to anything, which is kind of, you know, it's great that he's 18 now and I'm still, you know, doing what I'm doing, and anything is possible, I feel, at the moment, you know.
Yeah. I get the impression you are someone who's very intent on conducting your career on your own terms. Would that be a fair comment?
Probably, yeah. Somebody even said to me yesterday, would you not get an agent? Would you not get a manager? I'm like, hello. You don't realise how hard it is to get an agent or a manager. You know, they have to like you, or else they're trying to change you. So, you know, it would be just great for somebody to like me for what I do and who I am, and think, you know, this, you could exploit this girl. But I just, yeah, there's just so much music here, I think, you know, and it doesn't matter if you have a great voice or if you've this or that. Like, the song has to be something that, you know, gets radio play and gets out there, and then people start knowing who you are. I had that in a limited forum, like back in the in the middle of the 90s, when I had a couple of, you know, radio, not hits, but I mean, they were good. I got good national radio play for them, and I still never springboarded from that, you know. So it's just kind of still waiting for the lucky break type of thing. Well, I'm not waiting anymore. I'm just enjoying the ride, you know. So it's good to have learned that too. Yeah.
And just before I let you go, Siobhán, what's the plan of attack for the rest of this year? What's in your near plans?
The rest of this year, I have a good few gigs, which is good, and I am recording a lot and writing a lot. My guitar player is away for the summer, so working with the keyboard player hopefully next week, and that's a separate thing. It's like that orchestral thing I was talking about, and then from September to Christmas, I'm hoping to finish the rest of the album and have it recorded, and then do all that work that is entailed in getting an album out there.
Yeah.
And hopefully have that all done before I even think of bringing it out. So that, you know, it's just so, the energy involved is just unbelievable, you know, bringing out an album. So you need to be. And I've learned so much from all the other ones I've brought out, so I'm hoping I'll get this one right.
And we're hoping, amongst all that, we could possibly get you down here to Australia. We'd love to see you.
Well, it's funny, I've never been to Australia, but my dad is involved with rugby, and he used to manage the Irish rugby team.
Oh, yes.
And so he's been over there a good few times, to all over, really. I mean, they've played in a lot of different places, and I see you're not doing too well in the Tri-Nations at the moment.
That'll be right.
Oh, God. Yeah, so I don't believe it. There's my phone going off. I don't believe it. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
God. Are you there?
Yeah, still here.
Hello?
Yes. Still here.
Hello?
No, I was actually just going to say that we have a fantastic festival season down here in the first part of the year, which you would just slot into beautifully.
Really?
Oh, yes. We have a whole run of wonderful folk festivals which keep people busy for the first 2 or 3 months of the year.
Wow. And that's summer then there, is it?
Yeah. From February through to, what was that, about mid-April. is our festival season.
Right.
So I might email you some information and.
If you get anything, you just put it down in an email. That'd be worth checking out. Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be great.
When I don't have a job anymore.